It took more than a half-century to build, but Kansas City's extensive park system has given us yet another reason to be proud of our town, and has earned us the distinction of being one of the most beautiful cities in the country. One man, George Kessler, deserves credit for that. Kessler designed the vision behind the 4,000 acres of parks and boulevards that transformed this cow town into a majestic city on the bluffs.
In the 1880s, Kansas City grew quite rapidly. Its population at the end of the decade was 2.5 times that at the beginning. Almost all of the construction that went up in terms of housing was frame, variety, and not terribly well built.
A planner, engineer, and a landscape architect, George Kessler made sure that as the city grew, it kept an eye on beauty. One area that typifies Kessler's vision is Hyde Park.
And it's really one of the very small jewels of the city. It's very difficult to get any sense of the park by driving around it, but if one walks through the middle, you feel like you're in the midst of wilderness in the city. And that was a type of thing that Kessler was trying to accomplish. By 1910 to 1915, Kansas City, in fact, had transformed itself into a city which took advantage of the rough terrain and the natural beauty that it had, rather than being a city of mud holes, gullies, and rather stark-looking bluffs. He wanted to create picturesque scenes that people could see in a park setting. In some cases that opened up to a distant view, or in other cases that simply provided a difference in texture. Trees broken by grass and then framed by low shrubs and bushes.
In addition to large parks and boulevards, Kessler included neighborhood parks and playgrounds in his plan. Some of those parks included public tennis courts and golf courses, considered quite revolutionary for its time.
The various games that they would play, exercises, calisthenics, and other things, but the idea on young women maintaining good physical condition as well as young men, everyone, of course, appropriately fully clothed in the process, was something that was important in those early days, and Kessler certainly supported those programs.
Eventually, Kessler's talents as an urban planner became known around the world, but it was here in Kansas City where his talents flourished.
His work is recognizable in so many parts of the city, the northeast, the central section, as well as the southwest area. And even into the southeast part of the city, of course, along Swope Parkway and in the regions of Swope Park itself. So his presence can be felt almost anywhere you go inside the area that was Kansas City prior to World War II.
Every child has explored the tasty delights of a Hydrox cookie. But most have no idea that the man behind this family favorite was Jacob Leander Luce of Kansas City. Hello, I'm Bill Kalahurka for Kansas City Crossroads. Even though he started out at the age of 10 sweeping floors in a grocery store, during his lifetime he made a fortune with his brother and his good friend, baking cookies and crackers, and Kansas City became the beneficiary of his sweet success.
The American dream. Here's a guy that literally started at the real bottom and worked his way up and went from there, and he and his brother started a small retail store down in southeast Kansas. It became very, very successful. He bought farms, he multiplied that, and then used that money then to come to Kansas City and begin Loose Wiles Biscuit, which then became a major success.
Today we know the Loose Wiles Biscuit Company as Sunshine Biscuit, makers of America's first sandwich cookie and a variety of other familiar favorites. But the lives of Jacob and Ella Luce were marked not only by great success, but also great tragedy. They buried their only children as babies. Jacob and Ella Luce turned their efforts to philanthropy, becoming one of Kansas City's early major benefactors. Perhaps what tugs the heartstrings of noted philanthropists is evident in the nature of their gifts.
She would go out to Gillis' home, and she would bring this great big huge carton of shoes. And she also had her own pocketbook, which always looked to me like a large briefcase that was always full of $1 bills. And she would again be ensconced in a large chair, and all the boys would come by and she'd hand them a pair of shoes and a $1 bill. And she did this every year. Jacob Luce was equally as generous as was Mrs. Luce, and he, in his own home, the mansion there on Armour Boulevard, had a wonderful setup of chimes and an organ. And people would come and they would admire it, and he would turn around and find out what church they belonged to and give their church a comparable set. During his lifetime, he and Mrs. Luce gave a number of major gifts. They helped get Children's Mercy Hospital going. You're sitting in the middle of, I think, one of the most magnificent gifts, Luce Park.
Through the Luce Foundation, the Luces continue to touch the lives of Kansas Cityans in numerous ways.
Since their death, both of the Luces set up charitable trust funds, which now take care of things like Truman Medical Center, help set up learning exchange. There's a whole variety of projects in Kansas City, which means that their good works continue.
There's something unmistakable about that band organ music dancing in our memories. You can almost taste the cotton candy as you watch these gilded horses dashing round and round on the carousel. Hello, I'm Bill Kalahurka for Kansas City Crossroads. Of the 3,000 to 4,000 wooden carousels that once delighted youngsters across the land, fewer than 200 still exist. This one was made in 1901 by a Kansan named C.W. Parker, the self-proclaimed amusement king.
C.W. went on to become the largest manufacturer of amusement and carousel equipment in the world. Places as far away as Russia. He sent one to the Tsar of Russia, Hawaii. All around the world would know the Parker carousels.
In the early 1900s, carousels grew in popularity across America. While some manufacturers were producing grand carousels for use in permanent locations such as Coney Island, C.W. Parker carved out another niche. His horses were designed for county fairs and traveling carnivals, which included stops in Kansas City.
Instead of having the big park carousels, there was a whole lot of portable carousels that would come in for a weekend. They'd come in on Friday morning, set up. They would play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They'd tear down Sunday, and then they were on to the next town. This was the entertainment. If you had a picnic, if you had a fair, whatever the event was, you needed to have a carousel there, because that was the entertainment. That was the recreation. That was the fun.
Parker carved his carousels with a distinctive style. On the back of the saddle, Parker often included an ear of corn because he was raised in Kansas. And many of his horses wore metal horseshoes stamped C.W. Parker, Leavenworth, Kansas. To be sure, Parker's horses looked like no other.
His horses were stretched out, and they looked like they were in the running position. Also, the nostrils were flared. And sometimes the heads were turned and cocked back. And what this gave the rider the impression that it was actually moving. It was actually galloping down the road and that type of stuff.
Wherever they traveled, carousels attracted crowds of all ages.
No matter whether you're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, whether you're 70, 80, 90 years old, you all become the same age when you get ready to get on the carousel. So it's something that for the older people it brings back great memories. And for the younger kids, it is a great moment at that time.
Kansas City has always been in love with baseball. And after a lifelong love affair with the game, nobody knows baseball like the gentle, shining star of the legendary Kansas City Monarchs, first baseman Buck O'Neill.
Monarchs really were just about everything to Kansas City. We were a good ball club. When Satchel pitched, we were a great ball club because Satchel brought the best out of you. But I tell you what, he brought the best out of the opposition too, because they wanted to beat him. So this was great, really. This was at its best because, you know, the best thing about any athletic endeavor is the competition. Competition that makes the world go round. Makes the hair raise up on the back of your neck. Yeah, everybody wanted to come play with the Mars. Yeah, because we had the pick of the litter. The only difference in the game, I think, would be that during my era, the best athlete in the world played baseball. Because football, basketball was more or less college game. But you want to make a living professionally, you play baseball. So we got the best athlete in the world. Actually, America didn't know how good baseball could be until they signed Jackie Robinson. You know what I mean? You level that field so everybody could play.
Jackie Robinson was a Kansas City Monarch when he signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers in October of 1945.
Actually, this made sports as good as sports could be. Before it wasn't. No, it wasn't. When they signed Jackie, when Branch Rickey signed Jackie to that contract, hey, that was the death knell of Negro League baseball. In a way, it was good, but for the simple reason now, anybody that whatever you were capable of doing, you had a chance to do it. Yeah, anywhere, not just in the segregated part of the country. No, you could do it any place you wanted to do it if you were good enough. Baseball, that's a team game. Not any one person. You know, so I don't care how good you pitch, somebody got to catch it. So it's a team sport, and that's life.
He wasn't born and raised here, but Kansas City has embraced him as one of its own, because he made history by teaching us something about grit, perseverance, and what it means to give 100%. It's no surprise that Kansas City tips its hat to George Brett, Hall of Famer. I was brought up with respect to the game. I was brought up with a love for the game. And I think if you love something and you respect something, you give 100% every chance you get.
George Brett gave it everything, every time. George Brett would hit the ball to the pitcher and run just as hard to first base as he would if he had a chance for an infield hit. That was George Brett. That was George Brett.
I think the big thing about George was the joy with which he played the game. From the first time he came to the big league, he had that twinkle in his eye, and there was that joy. And then, at the end of his career, and he was in his late 30s, he still had that twinkle in his eye, and he was still playing the game with the verve of a 10-year-old. And I think that's the constant thread throughout Brett's career as a big leaguer.
Another constant thread is Brett's devotion to his dad for consistently demanding excellence. And every chance he gets, he expresses appreciation for his good friend and hitting coach, Charlie Lau.
I don't think playing 20 years in the major leagues would have been without Charlie Lau. He had a chance to mold me into a player at a very early age, and I've been so thankful for that. He not only helped me as a baseball player, but I think he helped me as a human being.
Brett was a good athlete, no doubt about it. But it was his dedication to working hard that made him a great athlete.
His hands, I mean, he took so many swings, his hands, the calluses almost, they did, I guess, bleed from time to time. That hard work, it's what was, people would come at 7:30 and he'd get 3 hits and they'd say, wow, natural. They weren't out there at 2:30 in the afternoon when it was 140 on the turf watching him take swing after swing after swing, refining that. He liked being up there in clutch situations. He liked the fact that he was in the batter's box with the game on the line, and let's be honest about it, not all big league players do. They would rather, what's the old phrase, let George do it. Well, George did it. That mental toughness and ability, and really the work ethic. So all of that, I think, blended together to produce the final product that ends up in Cooperstown. The fact that he is the first major league player to play his career in Kansas City, to go into the Hall of Fame, it's a great legacy. It's something that all others that follow should and will shoot for.
Sometimes children are born into circumstances that teach them much too soon that life isn't always fair. But as early as the 1920s, a group of generous hearts in Kansas City started clearing a path to a special place in the woods where these kids could create lifelong memories.
And the summer of 1925 was our first camping season. They started out what is now underneath Lake Jacomo with a dammed up swimming hole. Used that every year up until 1929 when we built our first swimming pool. We were looking from the standpoint of our camp, specifically for boys who didn't have any other opportunity like this. They call them frequently the phrase boys off the street.
Nestled in the woods east of Kansas City is the Rotary Youth Camp, made possible through the generosity of Rotary President Bob Gies and his wife, Clara.
He and his wife found this property we currently have, bought the land, and made it available through a trust to our Rotary Club for youth-related activities forever. Many of the boys that came out here were malnourished, and how much weight they gained while they were in camp. And that was a recurring theme in those early years of boys who didn't have even good nutrition. So the emphasis was not so much on physical disabilities at that time as probably on environmental disabilities. And things that were beyond the child's control that the members of our club felt were very important to try to correct.
Over the years, the camp has adapted to serve the needs of a growing number of children with disabilities.
People are realizing that just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean you can't go to camp. And they're doing things that was forbidden a few years ago. Unfortunately, kids with disabilities a lot of times don't have a long life. And I think this camp fulfills the need for them to have some outstanding experiences. You look at a pool that isn't like any other pool you've ever seen. People say, well, it's not rectangular, it's not square, it's kind of a hodgepodge. But it's made for our kids. It's made for disabled kids from 1 foot deep on up to 9 feet. But it's designed to make it easier and more fun for the kids, safer for the kids. You want these kids to have quote-unquote normal experiences of a lifetime in the time that they've got.
This one? Yeah.
And I think this is one of the things we achieve.
There you go. Hey. Welcome, Angela.
No matter how much we think we're ready, when the time comes for the kids to leave home and head off to college, many of us find ourselves unprepared. Just imagine sending your children far away from home at the tender age of 5 or 6. Back in 1884, Native American families had to do just that. And so it was that Indian children in the Kansas City area found their way here to the United States Industrial Training School in Lawrence, Kansas.
Stories that we came to school, because my dad was already at the school. So he was so much. And it was only like 5 or 6.
Congressman Dudley Haskell was instrumental in locating the school in Lawrence and was named Haskell Institute. Following the pattern set by the Shawnee Indian Mission, Haskell Institute taught boys farming and related. Girls were taught housework.
They were trying to diminish the cultural part of the Indian as we could learn new ways to economically help the dominant society was English as English would get the natural cultural significance of these developments.
The cemetery on campus tells a grim tale of children who didn't survive the transition.
Again, purple tribes, you know, the poppy, iron, that clothes, the faces, cattle. If you see the airspace, each space from 2 years by 2 years old. The best thing about it, they had to bury it and they couldn't take them home with them.
Gradually, the school evolved from a grade school to a high school and then a junior college.
Now that it's acceptable by the government that we can keep our heritage beliefs. The early 60s that we don't do that. And even in the era of my dad, he encouraged that these folks could live home.
To honor the students' heritage, Stan Hurd and Leslie Evans created the Medicine Wheel Earthworks in 1972.
Since its inception, there have been hundreds and hundreds of students that relate to the medicine system. They go down and meditate, they go down and pray, they go down to use the medicine.
Today, Haskell Indian Nations University is the only intertribal in the country.
Haskell has served sort of like a lifeline, educational lifeline to